People use their kids as excuses and barriers for a bunch of shit. I can't because my kids. I can't because I have a family. I can't blah, 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 blah. You need to find new negative consequences. The negative consequences that are currently happening right now are not that bad for you. Imagine you actually achieve it. Imagine you actually have the body, you actually had the marriage, you actually had the house, the career, the list goes on. And you didn't have to change your goal. And you found out, and it maybe took longer and you maybe worked your ass off more, but what if you got there? How happy would you be? What's going on, everybody? My name is Stefan Coons, and welcome to the Everyday Pursuit podcast. What's up? If you're new here, welcome. I just want to ask a huge favor real quick, because if you've been listening to the past couple episodes, and I know we're ramping up, we're getting more views, it would really, I would super appreciate it if you could like, comment, subscribe, or even share this episode, because I'm going to share with you basically the equation that I think is going to help you lose weight and keep it off forever, which if you know anything about weight loss, people all the time, they lose weight, which is one thing, but they usually gain it back. And there's tons and tons and tons of studies to show this. And this being in the new year, when this episode comes out, like we know people are going to do that, right? They're going to go on a kick and say, I'm cutting out sugar and I'm cutting out alcohol and I'm doing all these things. And they'll probably lose weight. Actually, I would say, like, I know they're going to lose weight, but I also would bet a lot of money that the vast majority of those people are going to gain it back, right? And when you lose weight, which, you know, is hard in itself, and you gain it back, you want to talk about demotivating. But before I dive in to this episode too deep, if you don't know about Pursuit Health and Performance, basically we train veterans, first responders, and medical professionals. We call them our everyday heroes. And we create custom online programs for them with fitness, nutrition. And the last couple of years, we've had over 500 transformations. So if you are a first responder, and you don't have to be, we have other people in our program too, but if you are in that community, we'd love to work with you. If you're in the point where you're like, hey, look, I need some help, you can click the link down below, fill out a form, chat with me or one of our coaches, and we'll see if we can help you. But listen to this episode, because this might actually open up a little bit of thinking, right? This is a mindset more than anything else. I'm going to give you actionable, tangible steps you can take with you, because if you lose the weight, like I said, that's one thing, but you need to keep it off. All right. So story time. I had a client, Ashley. Okay. And this was a while ago, right? But this client had a job where fat loss was going to be a challenge for sure. She was a sales rep. She traveled all over America all the time, like every single month. And that poses its own issues, right? When you're traveling, you don't have a consistent gym, which is hard. She worked out at like dinky hotel gyms all the time. Her food, that's like a huge one, right? Because weight loss, probably 60-ish to 70% comes from nutrition. She didn't really have like access to the food that she would normally have, right? Like prepping food was a challenge for her. She also had a really poor mindset around tons of different stuff with nutrition. She also had a job being in sales where she went out and like she would drink with people and have these social events. So like she had basically everything going for her that was a challenge, and she did have a family. So when she came home from the traveling, it's not like she was like, all right, you know, back on the grind, let me go to the gym every day. Like that wasn't her life, right? So she had a lot of things and what we would call barriers in her way to lose weight. And basically through these three things, Ashley was able to get rid of her barriers and her excuses and lose fat and keep it off. Okay. And I'm going to go back and forth to that story, but I just want to let you guys know that it works. We've seen it. We've seen this 3-step solution work for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of clients. Okay. So the first step, right? And Ashley did this too, is you have to make a choice that it's super important to you to get in shape. Now, I know if you're listening to this, you might be like, okay, well, that's freaking obvious, but check it out. It's not just making the choice. It's making a choice. And also when you make that choice, it's making sure that you're in enough pain to make that choice. And the reason I say that is a lot of people don't have enough holding them to it, right? Like if your check engine light comes on in your car, you're like, "Oh, that's not good." But you could drive it, right? Or your tire pressure comes on. Like you could keep driving it. Like it's a warning, but like do you really need to change it? But what happens if you go to start your car and your car doesn't start? Well, now you're forced to do something, right? You're like, "Oh my God, I can't do this. I can't." Or you're driving and your engine starts rattling and your car breaks down on the side. Okay, well, now you have to do something. And where you are right now, you probably have a check engine light on. You have warnings, right? Look at your physique. Look at the way you feel. Do you feel like crap? Do you feel like low energy? Are you super like unconfident in your clothes? Like that's the check engine light. And for most people, they say they make this decision, but I think they make it when they're not in enough pain. Like it's not painful enough. The reason that I think it's super important to make that decision, that it is important when you're in pain, is because people have to be fed up. It is too easy to quit if the pain is not there. And honestly, guys, this decision-making process you could use in almost every area of your life. I mean, when I chose to start this business, I was in a lot of career pain, right? COVID happened. I didn't have a job. Well, I did have a job, but like all the gyms shut down. Tried so many freaking things in the fitness industry, just like you guys have maybe tried a lot of diets and exercise programs and nothing worked. And I was just at the point where I was like, okay, I'm either going to completely get out of fitness and like I just went to college for exercise science too, and just completely give up on my dreams, or like it's happening. And I didn't want to give up on my dreams. I knew that I wanted it. And it was, I like festered in it. I literally sat for like a month and just always thought about how frustrated I was that I had these jobs that didn't work out. I was pissed off. It was not okay with me. Okay. So I had to make these decisions. And previously I did make decisions, air quotes, right? And the decisions were like, "Oh, I want to do this and I want to do this." And I've been training like in my own LLC since 2015. Okay. So I had other businesses, but I don't think I was in enough pain. Now, 2015 out of the military, I was broke financially. I was definitely in enough pain. Ashley tried stuff in the past. She wasn't in enough pain. She made a decision, which is basically like just a conversation you had, like, I want to get in shape. But the consequences really weren't there, right? Like if she didn't get in shape, who cares, right? And in 2015, when I got out of the military and started my job, I was broke, like no money in the bank account, in debt. It was bad. It was so bad. I lived with my parents. And I think that for me, the consequences and like the pain point, it was there, but I also had to make the decision that like it needed to get like just a little more painful. And the pain was good because I failed over and over and over and over and over again. And not necessarily because I didn't put in effort, but like sometimes it's not going to work the first time. And that pain was good because it drove me. It made it so I wanted to keep going. Like I didn't want to give up. I had, a personal training thing that didn't work out over and over and over again. And I went to school and other jobs didn't work out, thank God. But I needed that pain, which brings me to step 2. Step 2 is you need to find new negative consequences. The negative consequences that are currently happening right now are not that bad for you. Probably not. Like I would argue that it's not as bad as you think because you are where you are, right? It's like the check engine light. You're like, "Oh, the check engine light's on. That's bad." Okay, but is it bad enough for you to actually take action? Because let's say you're overweight and you're 40 pounds overweight and you don't like the way you look and you have low confidence and you don't feel sexy and you're just, or maybe at your job, if you're a first responder, your performance is dropping and you're like, "Wow, I don't want to be here." That feeling, that's your consequences. There could be more, but those are your consequences. I will say that I don't think they're that bad. Now, if you're actually actionably doing something right now, then I think they are that bad because it was painful enough where you're like, I have to make a decision and I have to take action on that decision. But for most people, they they have an internal conversation and a narrative in their head, and they make concessions with their current consequences and their current situation. Like, oh, my body's not that bad. Or like, yeah, I have low energy, but it's not that bad. I'll drink coffee. Like whatever. And they make these concessions. And I think that you end up getting used to your negative consequences. I mean, when you look at how somebody continues to gain weight, they accept each position they're at. Well, the fact that you're overweight and you have excess body fat, that's a consequence of a conglomerate of things. You not going to the gym, you're not eating the way you're supposed to, you're not being as physically active, you're not holding yourself accountable, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But when we look at that, it's like you've accepted those consequences. Like they're not that bad. If they were that bad, you would change. And I've been in areas of that my life, and I've talked about it in the last several episodes, especially going into the new year and reflecting on last year in 2023. I accepted a lot of things. I'm like, it's not that bad. And the only time that it ever got bad enough is when I actually like pulled away from life a little bit and thought about it and did a lot more observing. I'm like, dude, it is that bad. And I set higher freaking standards for myself, right? I made sure that the consequences that I was currently, experiencing, and just to give you guys some, like, I had some marital issues and stuff, which it wasn't like terrible, but I'm like, man, maybe my spouse doesn't feel as loved. Or my son was like, maybe my dad could spend more time with me. Or even in business, I'm like, maybe I could do this thing better. And I just accepted the consequences. And then you get used to them. Like, I didn't need to change anymore. I was like, it's kind of crappy, but like, it's okay. It's okay a 5 out of 10. It's okay a 6 out of 10. And I didn't end up wanting to change and actually doing things until I thought of the extremes of the consequences. Like somebody might say, well, if you don't get in shape, you could die. You could have a heart attack. But you'd be surprised. I've actually had conversations with people that tell me if I don't change, I think I could die, and they still don't invest. And part of the reason, you might be like, dude, that's crazy. Why would they not get help? Why would they not get a coach? They could die. They've gotten used to their consequence. Their consequence is being overweight, being unhealthy, the whole list of things, and they're just sat in it and they're okay. They're still living, right? So that's the whole point about having, new consequences. One that is probably really helpful for you is loss of money. We live in America. People love their money. Money is very, 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 very emotional. In fact, I hear a lot of men say, I'll do whatever for my family. I'll work another job. I'll work overnights. I'll pick up this, to support my family. Cool. So money is super important. That is actually something where I feel like people work very well off of money being the negative consequence. Like if you don't do this, you're going to lose all this money. Like you want to talk about a freaking emotional driver. I did that with business. I put in $10,000+ and quit my job to put myself in a corner because I'm like, I need new set of consequences, because before, when I failed those businesses, or like they didn't succeed, whoop-de-doo. But I didn't really like lose things. It didn't screw me over. This time it would have screwed me over. So my effort went up 50-60% because I literally didn't have a choice, or I felt like I didn't have a choice to fail. That's a good thing. You probably haven't been doing that. Now you could have another consequence saying, yeah, I won't enjoy life as much, and I want to be there for my kids, and I want to be there for my spouse. And those are really good emotional drivers. But I have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of conversations every year. And I hear a lot of people saying, I want to be a better dad. I want to be a better spouse. I want to be there for my kids, but they still don't do anything. And I'm not saying that's like a shot on the person, but I just don't think it's like real enough. You can't like hold it. It's not tangible. Like, yes, if somebody's on the verge of dying or having a heart attack, more or less, but if you're like kind of unhealthy and you're kind of overweight and you kind of have low confidence and you kind of have low energy, again, you see that kind of, it's not that painful. You're okay with it. You're okay with a freaking 5 out of 10 in your life in that area and in multiple areas. You're like, but why? And again, it's making those concessions. And I really do believe that finances is one of those things to tie you into that. So actionable steps. Honestly, do a program like ours or another program, or invest in like gym stuff, like invest in gym equipment. I mean, there's a lot of people that buy in-home gym stuff and they never use it. I'm not saying do that. I actually don't usually go do that, but buy a gym membership, sign up for something that like locks you in. And that might seem super weird, but it also, I think it's really good, especially if you're somebody that does quit and that does give up easily. And you know yourself, If you're not where you want to be right now and you struggle with this for more than 6 months, you probably need some type of accountability. And I just believe that money ties you into things, right? Like we took a trip a while ago and we bought our tickets way in advance and we didn't really want to go. And if I didn't buy the tickets, I probably would have just not went, but I didn't want to lose the money, right? So what do? I went and I'm actually really glad I went. So that's the whole point. I think tying yourself in, finding new negative consequences, or maybe if you are a first responder or military or medical, you could lose your job. You can't pass a PT test, you're going to lose your job. And you might be like, well, maybe not. But I see people come through our program all the time because they don't want to lose their job or they want to get in the military. And that's a pretty substantial consequence, right? You're going to lose your career, which is also money, by the way. So I think money drives people a lot. It doesn't mean that you should just arbitrarily spend money on stuff just because, but I do think finding new negative consequences. So I want you to think about a couple areas in your life that suck right now. Let's just be frank. They're not that good. And what consequences have you been accepting? Like where it is right now, all the negative things, what have you been accepting and how long have you been accepting it? You need to kind of think of the extremes. And that's why number one is tied to number two, because it's probably not painful enough. And number three is probably the most important. And this is being solution focused. But before I dive into three, let me just tell you about Ashley again. So for Ashley, she got to a point when she started working with us where she basically, and I'm not saying this is right, but in her last relationship, she felt very unloved from just what she shared with me. She felt like she wasn't really like worthy. Her partner was actually very like fit and kind of like healthy and stuff, but she just didn't want to do it. Like there was this part of her where, she would say, I'm lazy. I'm not as motivated as him, blah, 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 blah. But like long story short, she had to get to a point where the relationship didn't work out. And from what I understand, I'm not a relationship coach, but it wasn't like a terrible relationship. She really just felt like she wasn't worthy. And it's kind of like a sad thing, but she got to a point where she was just like, I'm done feeling sorry for myself. I'm done having failed relationships because I can't take accountability and do the things I need to do. And fitness is one area, but what you might not realize is for Ashley and for some of these people specifically, it bleeds in. It's not just fitness. Like if you can't take accountability with your fitness and your nutrition and your health, there's probably other areas of your life that shows up in. I would be willing to bet at some capacity. And she would have failed relationship after failed relationship. And she identified through this journey and this transformation, external and internal, that she just didn't take ownership of things. And she had excuses for everything. And it was like from like date nights and all these things, like it was, planning. And basically what it was is she just wasn't solution focused. And the thing is, she had to get in enough pain. She had to get to that point where she was like, okay, I'm done. I want to be happy. I want to be in a relationship. And for her, that was like so important. And it sucks that somebody might have to go through so much pain. But the thing is, when she came to me, she was 100% in. I didn't have to do all this convincing and motivating her. She was just like, I'm in so much pain and I'm so fed up and I'm so freaking sick of it. I'm done. I really do believe if she would have tried to start a program a year earlier, she wouldn't have been successful. And I'm not saying that you guys need to have things fail, but you need to emotionally feel that pain enough to where you're fed up. Okay. So another thing that she struggled with was she was super, super, super barrier focused. I travel, so I can't go to the gym. I travel, so I can't eat healthy. I travel, I have this job, I have kids. So like every single thing was a barrier. They were actually legitimate barriers. And I talk about this a lot. People are going to identify and tie to legitimate excuses. They're not going to go and be like, say something to themselves in their head that's completely left field because they know they're not. Some people do, but they know they're full of it. So she had these legitimate excuses, but they were barriers. And she had validation from other people like her spouse, her family. It was okay for her to be overweight, right? She bought into the consequences. Everybody said, oh yeah, of course, man, if I had your schedule, I would never work out. I don't know how you would be able to stay consistent in the gym. And like, I'm like, man, all those people are trying to be nice, but man, they're hurting you. And she had to understand, and I had a really important conversation with her the first couple weeks of training. And basically what I said is, hey, somebody out there with your exact same situation, like they're probably identical to you, same type of job, they travel all the time, they do this, they do this, they do this, they have kids, they're also X amount of pounds overweight, and they've done what you wanted to do. Because one thing is, she looked at her situation and she was like, well, like, I can't do this. It's, and people do this, man, with their genetics and every single situation. They're like, you don't get me. You don't get my lifestyle. You don't know what I'm going through. You don't know. And that's true. I don't. But the whole point is, there's a lot of people, billions, bill with a B, billions of people on this earth. There's probably somebody that's basically identical to your situation or where you are and got where you're wanting to go. So you can keep buying into the fact that, well, yeah, that person's in shape because they don't have kids. That person's in shape because they have a better career. That person's, instead of just saying, I think it's possible. And she just had all these barriers, her travel, her life, her lifestyle, her past, her relationship with food. But I'm like, yeah, but I've worked with, and we've seen people through our program, and I told her this too, was somebody that I worked with before a couple years prior that was very, 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 very similar. And this is how she did it. And we had to have that conversation, that mindset breakthrough. And sorry, I'm like a little shaky because it is freezing and I probably should have worn a jacket. That mindset breakthrough where we had to understand that she was validating her legitimate excuses her entire life. She was okay with her consequences. And it was just this perpetual freaking cycle. And it wasn't painful enough. But then after she realized that, hey, look, I'm not special. I'm not this individual where, oh my God, I'm not in good shape or I'm overweight because, I have all these things in the way and nobody else is like me. No. There's people that have done what you wanted to do. And that's really important to understand, because if you really do believe that your situation is so individual and so like nobody else is like you will never be in shape. That is going to be your biggest barrier, because you can always use that. It's like the genetic thing. Like people over and over and over again, this is probably the most frustrating thing as a coach. They're like, I have different genetics than you. I have different genetics than you. I have different genetics than this person. Of course you have different genetics. There's only one of you. And you might have, quote unquote, worse genetics for being lean, or worse genetics for building muscle. That's true. There's validation in that for sure. But there's also somebody that is, has a higher body fat percentage, genetically predisposition to be fatter, that has gotten in shape. What did they do? There's also somebody that's been skinny and not muscular their whole life that gained muscle. What did they do? And the list goes on. And so by sitting there and looking at people that are in shape and saying, well, they're in shape because they don't have my lifestyle and they don't have kids and they don't travel and they're blah, blah, blah. That's the worst crutch you can use. It's going to hold you down forever. Right. So, I think a big thing for her too is she had somebody that called her out on those things. She had an accountability source that helped her. And I had to do that with my business. I kept saying to myself in my head, not really out loud, but like, oh, look at all these other businesses. They're successful. Well, and this is true. This is actually very true. A lot of these fitness coaches don't have kids. They are literally just single people, or maybe a spouse, but they don't have kids. And that, if you have kids, completely changes the game. I've had a kid since I was 19, and I use that as a barrier. I'm not successful because I have a kid. If I didn't have a kid, and this is nothing against my son, I love being a dad, but like I use it as a mental barrier. If I didn't have a kid, I'd have more time to do this. I'd have more time. I'd have to spend time with my son, so I can't do this. Barrier. And people use their kids as excuses and barriers for a bunch of shit. So, I'm not the only one. I can't because of my kids. I can't because I have a family. I can't blah, 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 blah. And I kept using it as a barrier. And although there was some legitimacy to it, other fitness coaches or business owners or entrepreneurs that are single, or maybe they just have a spouse and they're both adults and the guy can work all day, the girl can work all day. Like they do have more freedom. They do have more time, but like there is somebody, and I had to have this conversation with myself several times. There's somebody that has multiple kids that is very successful, and they're the type of person you want to be like, and they have the life that you want to be like. You need to find who that is and learn from them. And it was hard. I had to let down my pride. I had to find that person, but I had to realize that like if I kept holding on to, well, my situation's unique and that's why I'm unsuccessful at whatever goal it is, it was hurting me. It was hurting me so bad. And it really, it makes you believe that it's impossible, right? It makes you believe that it's okay that you're not successful. It's okay that you're failing in that area because you just have all the cards against you. Boo hoo. It's a victim mentality. And I've been there. And so I know it. So guys, if you really, really are concerned about losing fat and keeping it off, because keeping it off is the hardest part, you need to just make the decision, but you need to make it when you have a little bit of pain. The check engine light is not probably enough because you've already been ignoring it. You already haven't done things. And even if you have you done it consistently not long enough to make a change? No, you've been up and down and up and down and up and down and up and down forever because it hasn't been painful enough. You've made a half-assed decision, right? You've made just a one-time or a couple-time internal conversation. I'm going to start Monday, and you get a little motivated. That's not enough, right? Because the negative consequences you're already holding into, which brings me to step 2, you need new negative consequences. You need to invest more. Investing ties you to things, and that doesn't have to be money, but it's usually money. Money, time, effort, emotionally, right? You see people in terrible relationships, but they're like, I've been with this person for so long. Why don't they want to get out? They have wasted so much time. It's an investment, right? So things that tie you to it, it makes it easy or not easy to give up, right? It makes it more challenging to give up. That's a good thing. We live in a world where you could just cancel your subscription. You could just break up with somebody through text. You could just get divorced wherever you want. You could just quit the program wherever you want. You could just switch careers wherever you want. And although some of that stuff might be okay, I think that it breeds a very low commitment society. And your low commitment is probably hurting you. So you need to find new consequences. And then you need to be solution focused. You have way too much validation. Even for our first responders, they'll tell me things like, hey, I'm going to work and there's nothing good to eat. All I'm eating is like 7-Eleven and crappy food. And there's nothing available. And I'm like, okay, so and that's true, right? So you need to bring food to work. Well, I don't like to prep food. Okay. What do you mean you don't like to prep food? Oh, well, I don't like to I'm not a cook. Okay. What if you ordered meal prep? I don't want to order meal prep. It's kind of expensive. Okay. Well, what if you did like snacks and a protein shake while you were at work? Like apples, bananas, nuts, protein powder. I don't really like protein powder. And dude, just every single thing, every solution, they have a barrier. And the thing is you got to pick your freaking poison. If you go to work, okay, and this is for all of our medical too. If you go to work and there's donuts and crappy food at work, or there's only gas stations, or there's only fast food, stop making that the only thing available. Bring food, bring things. And if you start telling yourself, well, I don't like this, or I don't have time, that's you being barrier focused. You are not solution focused. There's another law enforcement or nurse or firefighter or somebody out there that it does that. They bring their food to work. They're jacked and shredded. They do the things they're supposed to. They also have kids. They also have a family life. You can do it too. We've seen people in our program, hundreds of people come through that have done that. That's how I know personally. Okay. You have to know, but you have to kind of believe me, right? And if you don't believe me, go do your own research. But I've seen it, and that's why we can't tie into those excuses, okay? So if you are somebody where you're listening to this and you're like, all right, I understand. And oh, wait, hold on. This is why the keeping fat off forever is important. This cycle repeats itself. Because let's say you lose the weight. Okay, let's go through these steps real quick. Let's say you make a decision, you're in enough pain, and you are like, I'm going to do something. Cool. Then you take action, right? And you find new consequences, right? You're like, hey, I'm doing this 6-week challenge, and I paid $500 for it. Cool. Okay. New consequences, financial. Good job. And then you lose the weight. Okay. And this is why, maybe you hit step 3 a little bit, right? You're like, oh, you know what? I didn't want to invest money, and now I'm investing money, and I'm prepping my food. I'm doing some stuff. This cycle is a perpetual cycle to keep weight off. You know that, right? Because what happens is you lose the weight, And when you lose the weight, what happens to your pain point? It actually goes away a little bit, right? Like if you get the check engine light analogy, if the check engine light comes off and your car breaks down, but then you get your car fixed, you're like, I'm not upset anymore. The pain point goes away. But then what happens when you don't do maintenance on your car and the check engine light comes on again and it breaks down again, right? And that pain comes back. It's a perpetual cycle. But what if, just like the car analogy, you got the car fixed and you kept up with the maintenance? But the only way to keep up with the maintenance, I really do believe, is to literally do steps one through three. You need to also make a choice, right? Let's say you lost the weight. You need to make a choice. I'm never going back there again. And you need to kind of hold on to that pain, right? Like you see people that get financially successful that come from being broke. They go, never again. They hold on to a little bit of animosity and pain. Good. It keeps you from sliding backwards, right? They decide that I'll never go back there again. It doesn't mean they live with this disdain and anger, but they're very aware of it, right? They know it's there. So if you lose the weight, I don't think the pain point should drop all the way because that's what happens. People lose it, they get comfortable, they gain it back. They lose it, they get comfortable, they gain it back. And that's probably happened to you at some point in your life. So you need to stay a little bit fed up and you need to get a little bit angry. Like, I can't believe I let myself be there. I'm proud of myself that I got here. Never again. Okay. Step 2, finding the negative consequences. Well, holding yourself to things works for the first time, but also continuously. Like our clients work with us for 12 months minimum, almost every single client. If they just did 1 month, they could actually hit all 3 of these steps, but that's still low commitment. That's not a lot of consequences, but consequences aren't always negative. That's just what happened, right? That's just the reactionary thing. So it could be a positive consequence. So for the clients that work with us for 12 months, like it's over and over. It's just perpetual. Like I need to do it. I need to invest. If I don't go, I'm wasting my money. If I don't go, I'm not getting in shape. And like we help curate more things than just money being a consequence, right? Like lifestyle, career, enjoyment of life, all those things too. But it's a continuous thing. And I'm not saying you need to be on a program forever, but until it is a freaking habit, you need to have that. And then number 3 is being solution focused. Guess what? You can't stay in shape. You cannot be successful in really any area of your life unless you are solution focused. Like I've seen every area of my life, the 5 buckets, faith, family, fitness, finance, friends, struggle when I become somebody that is barrier focused. I can't. It's really hard. Blah, blah, blah. Negative talk, negative mindset. Instead of like, you know what? It is challenging. I just haven't figured it out yet. I could probably think of a better solution. And it sounds like maybe all woo-woo, but that's part of the reason I journal and kind of have these conversations and this dialogue in my head, because I do believe that negative self-talk will destroy you. And it really is barrier focused. And I had to be solution focused. So if you lose the weight and you're there, but then barriers start to creep in. I am really busy. I'm going to miss the gym. I didn't have the food prep, so we just went and got McDonald's. Like, I'm telling you, you need to stay solution focused because guess what? It's freaking life. And in life, barriers are going to continue to come up every day, probably, or every week, whether you wanted to or not. Like, there's no other way around it. Life is freaking hard. Life is going to punch you in your damn face. And you need to have solutions. And I've become extremely, extremely solution oriented. And I really try not to be barrier oriented. Can't talk. And it's that alone, step 3 has changed my life. And we've seen hundreds of clients come through, just like Ashley, where she did have things that were like pretty legitimate barriers, her career, her family, all that, but she didn't care. It didn't matter because she's like, okay, if I hold on to the barriers, I'm in the same spot and I'm in enough pain where I don't want to be here, right? So their only other choice was finding freaking solutions, and they're there and they're probably easier than you think. So if you're listening to these 3 steps and you're like, okay, what would a tangible thing be? I'm going to tell you, here's my call to action to you. Join our Hero Transformation Program. We basically create a program that is totally tailored around you. We help you with your fitness, your nutrition. You have an onboarding call with your coach. And here's the cool thing about what we do. It is not a set it or forget it program. A lot of online coaches are like, join my 12-week shred program. Here you go. And it's kind of already this program that's curated and tailored. And then like you have to fit the program when it should be like, hey, what is your lifestyle and what is your goals and what are you struggling with? And then you create a program to fit that, right? We're flipping the script, and that's what we do. And that's why we've had 500, 600 transformations in the last couple of years. And we're training people in 40 something states right now with raving reviews, is because yes, we have really good coaches and it's a good program and we're educated. We're good at what we do. But really the trick is we take steps like this. We find solutions for you. We talk mindset. We create a program that fits for you. And it's a collaborative effort, because even if something like normal programs, right, what will happen is if something's not working, you're just kind of on your own, right? Like, well, you got to change around your schedule. You can't really sit down and game plan with somebody. And the way that we do it, it's a collaborative effort. You build a legitimate relationship with your coach. You have daily access to them. You're checking in with them every single week. And what happens is through this process, you start to get to know yourself better. Your coach calls you out on your BS, right? Not going to be jerks, but we're going to be loving about it. But you have somebody calling you out. So all those barriers and all those things, we ask questions. It's like a therapist, right? Like, hey, is that really something that is you can't do? Or is that maybe, are you maybe using that as an excuse? And it gets people to think, yeah, I guess I probably could meal prep. Okay, cool. Let's do it. And now you have the accountability portion, and it's a really, really solid program. It's very easy to use, and we do everything: training, nutrition, mindset, scheduling, help with supplements. It's like a freaking Walmart or Target supercenter. And I say that because it's a one-stop shop. You don't have to go anywhere else. And I've spent so many years in the fitness industry refining our program, because I worked in group fitness. I worked in private training, all these things. And I basically took the good of every single area of fitness and took that, and then took the bad of every area of fitness and got rid of it. And that's our program. So you can go ahead and click the link below, or you can go to thepursuithp.com and fill out a form, or you can find me on Instagram. It's Stefan Kunz, STEFANKUNZ_fitness, and check out our Instagram there and fill out a form. All our links are in there for the podcast, our YouTube, because this is on YouTube, by the way, this podcast. Every single time we come out with it, it's on Spotify video and on YouTube. So you can see my beautiful face and me chatting with you for 30 or 40 minutes. But that's my call to action to you. And here's some things. You might be saying, I don't have time to do a program. Well, you need to make time, right? It's customized to you. Like, it is literally, if you can go to the gym 3 days a week, 3. We have some guys that want to go 6 days. Some gals that want to go do 3 to 5 day split, depending on what they want. Some people that want to go to the gym for 45 minutes. Some people that want to go to the gym for 2 hours. It's curated towards you, and we're educated and good enough to make it work. Money, that might be an objection for you too, right? Hey, look, I don't have the money right now. Well, here's something about investing. Money is a weird thing. It's very fluid. If you don't spend money on yourself and your fitness, you'll spend it on something else in 2024. And if you say, well, no, I'm actually really trying to pay this off and save. Yeah, but for what? To spend it in the future. You understand that, right? Like, nobody just saves and saves and saves just to save, right? Like, you save money to be able to spend it at a future time point on something that is probably more important. I'm saving for a house. I'm saving for a car. I'm saving for a vacation. But like, do you really need the house, the car, the vacation, the upgraded TV, the truck tires, the gun, if you're low energy, overweight, lacking confidence, suffering in your career, suffering in your intimacy? Like, why is that not important? You will end up spending that money, and you will pay for not taking action at some capacity at some point in your life. And usually it's a lot worse, right? Plus, I just think the enjoyment of life. And then you might, I guess the last objection you might say is like, hey, look, I don't want to do a program. I don't want to get help. It's, maybe later. If it's not that important to you, I bet the number one thing you're doing is you're actually changing your goals. So you're to avoid your effort. And people do this a lot, and it's very, very, very common, but it's probably one of the worst things you can do. You say, well, I want to get a flat stomach. I want to lose my gut. I want to get toned. I want to look better in this dress. I want to whatever, fill in the blank, any fitness goal. And because you look at the work that comes with it, you say, well, you know what? It's not that important. No, it is that important to you. You just don't want to do the work that's associated with it. So you lower your standards and you run away and you cower from the work. But here's the thing. Yeah, the goal that you have, the desire that you have, that doesn't go away, right? You can bury it for sure. You can sweep it under the rug, but it's still there. So next time you go try on clothes and you have to change your outfit 5 times because you hate the way you look and everything, which is not positive, right? I hope you had a better mindset and body image, but like that doesn't go away. Like it doesn't go away until you change. So you can keep avoiding the work, but it just gets worse and worse and worse. And usually what I've seen as a fitness coach for 13 plus years is people don't just like get out of shape and then like stay there. I mean, some, but people progressively get more out of shape because you're getting older each year and life gets more stressful and more busy. And then it's going to get to a point where you're so far gone that who knows if you'll come back, or the work seems so daunting. Do not get to that point. Okay. Do not change your goals because you're afraid of the work. You need to find a solution that will work. And some people are willing to grind and grit through it and work harder and faster. And some people need a slower approach, and that's okay. And that's why we do a customized approach, because some of our clients we work with for multiple years, even if they have decent sized goals or big goals or whatever, because we understand that when you go to make a decision, and this is for me too, you're going to think of a lot of reasons why it won't work, which is also just being barrier mindset. You'll be like, I can't lose weight because of this. This won't work because of this. This won't work because of this. And that's a negative ass mindset that is getting you to be where you are right now. But my one concession is, you know where you want to be, and you know what you want. There's no two ways about it. You know the body you want. If you close your eyes freaking right now, take 5 seconds, imagine your body. I'm gonna do it right now. I'm closing my eyes. Imagine your dream physique. You have it? Okay. How did you know that's what you wanted? It just popped. You just drew it in your head? No, it's been there. You know what you want to look like. You know what you want to feel like. You know what you want your life to look like. You probably know the house you want to live in. You probably know the type of marriage you want, a relationship with your kids. People fantasize. We have these dreams and aspirations. You can achieve those goals, but don't change those goals because you're afraid of the work. Because at least for me, on my deathbed, I'd be really sad and disappointed that I ran away from the hard work. Life is hard, but you have to make decisions to better yourself. And I'm telling you right now that the best thing I've done for myself in the past year, or 2023, that I can recall at this present moment, is setting goals. And instead of sitting there and changing them, because that used to be me, I'd be like, oh, I don't know. You know what? Maybe not. Maybe I won't make that much money. Or, oh, I don't know if I can get in that shape. Maybe we'll just do this. I was like, maybe it will take longer. Maybe the route's not totally clear, but I'm going to get there. And like tying into those, because imagine you actually achieve it. Imagine you actually have the body, you actually had the marriage, you actually had the house, the career, the list goes on. And you didn't have to change your goal. And you found out, and it maybe took longer and you maybe worked your ass off more, but what if you got there? How happy would you be? Because I think if you reach a goal, but it's a goal that you had to lower your standards from here to here because you just didn't want to do the work in between, I don't know if you would have the same satisfaction. And I think that goal would still be your goal. Like you wouldn't be happy with it. And I know because I've achieved basically like weak ass goals that I set for myself, like, ooh, because I didn't want to do the work. Don't let that be you. Don't let it be you. So I appreciate it. I love you guys. Go implement this. I promise you'll be successful. Like I said, if you want to chat with me or one of my coaches, go to our social media. The link's in the description below. Go book up a totally free call. I'd love to chat with you and see if we can help you just like we helped all of our other everyday heroes. I love you guys, and I'll talk to you next time.